The General Insurance presents Ordering a Sandwich with Shaq and Hall of Fame announcer Michael Buffer.
I'm going to have roast beef. What do you want, Michael?
Let's get ready for pastrami on rye.
Turns out, Michael Buffer talks like that all the time. And it turns out, The General is a quality insurance company that's been saving people money for nearly 60 years.
Spicy Dijon mustard.
For a great low rate and nearly 60 years of quality coverage, make the right call and go with The General.
The General Auto Insurance Services, Inc. Insurance Agency, Nashville, Tennessee. Some restrictions apply.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebird.
Good morning. I'm Gail Nankervis, your host of the Less Sucky Divorce radio show, and I'm the owner of Blue Skies Mediation in Peachtree City. I help people get a less sucky divorce. Not you, but maybe your neighbor or friend or sister. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst and a licensed family mediator, and I use these skills with my clients to help them get a professional divorce without escalating fees and emotions. My goal is to help them get through the divorce process while retaining their sanity, their assets, and most importantly, their integrity. So the topic of divorce for a radio show might seem a little weird, but with more than 50% of marriages ending in divorce, I thought it was important to share information and resources with the community. Even though divorce is very common, people don't typically talk about it while they're going through it. You usually just hear the nightmare stories at the end of it. So my goal is to change the way people in our community get divorced through educating them about different aspects, the process, the financial side, the emotional side, and everything in between. I'm excited to be here today, and we will be right back with the Less Sucky Divorce radio show. Welcome back to the Less Sucky Divorce radio show. Last week I told you a little bit about my business. I'm a certified mediator here in Peachtree City and a certified divorce financial analyst, and I use these skills to help people get a professional divorce without using lawyers. But sometimes people just need lawyers. Today, my guest is Jenny Jones, and she will tell us a little about her experience getting divorced. Jenny had a very contentious divorce that required multiple lawyers, but she still could use my help in the divorce process. Jenny is a very good friend of mine, which is part of the reason why I was not able to mediate her case and instead provided information only on the financial side. But I'll let her tell you a little bit more about her experience. Good morning, Jenny. Welcome.
Good morning, Gail. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks. It's always good to have coffee and a chat with you.
Absolutely. It's what we do best.
So, as I mentioned, Jenny is one of my very best friends, and I help support her as a friend, but also as a professional through her divorce. Jenny, last week on the show, which I know you listened to, we talked about different ways people could get divorced. I introduced how I do business with people so they can avoid escalating fees and escalating emotions with lawyers, where sometimes things get out of control, but sometimes people just need lawyers to protect them.
Absolutely. And in my case, let me just give you a little background, just so you guys out there listening can understand where I was coming from. I am a realtor. I was a successful executive before I met and married my ex-husband. He was a very successful executive for a major corporation, and shortly after we got married, he preferred me to stay home, which was the beginning of an increasing cycle of domestic abuse, control, different aspects of marriage in that part. But however, the main thing that me stopping my career did was put him in the driver's seat financially. It made it really difficult for me to do anything or know what we had. I wasn't the lead on the accounts, so I was in a position where he held the purse strings 100%. I also am the one that left him due to a lot of the abuse that we had going on in our marriage. And he did not like that. He was not open to mediation. It was very contentious. It was very argumentative, and there was no way he was going to be reasonable enough to sit down in a room and say, this is what I want, this is what you want, this is what's fair. It just wasn't going to happen with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad, I don't want to open up sore wounds and have you expound on any of the abuse, but I think it's important to say our society as a whole is really doesn't do a good job handling domestic violence, domestic abuse. There are a bunch of different kinds. Most people usually recognize physical. Oh, well, and then people get in the cycle, women especially I would say, get in the cycle of, oh, well, he didn't beat the crap out of me, so it's not that bad.
Right.
And you stop talking to people because of the shame of letting somebody treat you that way, et cetera, et cetera. But there's more than just physical abuse. There's physical, there's sexual abuse, there's financial abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, psychological, and even spiritual abuse. And some of those actually can be recognized while going through a divorce. They can be recognized in court, but they're really difficult to put your finger on. And one of the problems I find in society today is that it's very difficult to get help when you're in that situation. I was in that situation myself, and there were times where I had things thrown at me, I had hands laid on me, and I wanted to call the police, but I knew that the police would come and have to decide which side to pick, and they would decide, oh, well, it's not bad enough. It's not that bad. So they would make some threats to my ex-husband and leave, and then I would be stuck with him alone, terrified and scared.
And not only that, if you're looking from a support aspect of things, my ex-husband was a powerful man within his company, but had any kind of arrest happened or taken place, how is he going to pay child support or alimony or help us bridge the gap between being married and being a standalone person? So
Absolutely.
that was a concern for me as well.
Absolutely. It's a very scary situation to be in, and it's not talked about. I will actually have a whole nother show about abuse so that our listeners can learn about it, also learn to recognize the signs or how to help people. But again, that's a big enough topic for another day. Mm-hmm. Definitely abuse of any kind is one reason why a couple would need a lawyer in divorce.
Yes, I would concur. Our divorce should not have been super duper complicated. It should not have taken as long as it did. But I'll share with you that even though it took us 18 months from start to finish, we are still in court to this day. It is still contentious. And it's just the person that I married. His personality was not conducive to letting bygones be bygones, okay, we settled this, it's over, let's move forward with our lives. That's never going to happen in my case. So,
right. Well, that's interesting because that's actually the second reason why some couples really just need to get a lawyer versus another alternative. And that is if one of the parties has a very domineering and controlling personality, the other person is usually afraid to speak up or afraid to question the facts, or in your case, you weren't even sure what the facts and the figures financially were.
No.
But so heaven forbid you question him and get in trouble in that regard and lose ground, as
Correct.
you will. So that kind of person with the controlling personality would never want to work with a mediator. They would need a lawyer so they can make sure they're screwing you over as much as they possibly could.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that, throughout the course of our divorce, he would use, I want to give you XYZ and you will sign it, and then I will move out of the house and leave you in peace. And me, I wanted peace. I wanted peace in my life. I wanted him to be out of our family home with my small child. I wanted peace. And my attorney that I actually did retain at the time said, don't you dare sign that piece of paper, no matter what kind of peace you're looking for. That is not going to be enough for you and your child. So having her know some of that made it a little easier to say, no, I'm not going to sign this piece of paper, even though I wanted peace. So she was hopeful in that regard.
So I'm glad you mentioned peace, because the emotional toil of going through a divorce can be just devastating.
Yes.
So you're afraid of everything. You're afraid of being homeless. Most people have thoughts about living under a bridge one day, and they need that reassurance that they're not going to. What are some ways you were able to manage your stress, or how did you take care of yourself during the process? Did you seek any counseling?
Yes, I did. I actually went to a women's shelter, I guess you would call them therapy group, that specialize in women that have undergone abuse during their marriage. And I believe you're one of the ones that gave me them as a resource, so thank you for that. But they actually helped me see all the different ways I was getting gaslighted, that I didn't even know what gaslighting was until I walked in there. I just thought I was crazy. And it was extremely difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that I had lived in a relationship like that for so long, but also extremely comforting to have a place where I could go to talk about those types of things and not have people look at you like, what are you talking about? You're living the high life. What's so bad about your life? You know, so it was really good to have that outlet. Also, definitely therapy of any kind, physical exercise, companionship with good friends, having outside interests and things to take your mind off of what is going on, because it can be a grind. Mine was 18 months of a grind every day, and it is a pressure cooker.
Yeah. So everything going on during those 18 months, I know enough personally about your case to know some of the antics that your ex was trying to pull. How did you keep track of all that? First of all, I would probably just want to stay in bed and cry. So kudos to you for getting up and doing all the things, because during this you were able to build a successful real estate business in a new town.
Yes.
In a new town.
Yes.
And you were able to do that in the midst of this stress also. So that really is amazing. How were you able to keep track of the details and the constant barrage of manipulations or threats about you and your child?
Yeah, so I believe it was also you, along with several other people, that recommended that I keep a journal of different things. Yes, you can screenshot text messages, but they are the least admissible in court and least trustworthy source in court. So if you have a journal of, on this day, if you just write an entry in your journal every day before you go to bed, say, this is what happened today. This is what happened today. With no emotion, nothing in it, just, he tried to make me feel guilty about XYZ here, or he threatened to cut me off without a penny, or he did in some cases. I mean, my funds got removed from our bank accounts, my credit cards got cut off, I was being financially strangled, and I had to keep meticulous records on that, otherwise I was never going to recoup any of it.
Did your lawyers help you get any kind of emergency orders or temporary orders for child support or for alimony? Because that's one thing that only a lawyer can do. As a mediator, if we've got something that needs instant attention and both people aren't on board, I'm not able to do that.
Right. So they did file an emergency motion that actually put us back in our family home. We had to flee during the course of this and stay with a friend until we could get put back in our home. But they did.
Your son too?
Yes, my son too.
So you and your son?
Yes.
You evacuated your house because you were afraid of your safety?
Correct.
How long were you out of the house?
7 months. So it took 7 months to get an emergency hearing. So it's very frustrating at times, especially when you live in a short-staffed county that doesn't have enough judicial services to get the help that you need, especially when you don't have a record of, oh, he blacked out my eye, or, oh, he pushed me down the stairs. If you don't have those on a police report, nobody's really going to take your physical safety seriously, because unfortunately it is a very used tactic in a lot of divorces.
It is. How did the judge respond when he found out you and your son were, I think you used the word one time, couch surfing?
Yes. Actually, it was great. My attorney said she'd never seen such a powerful response from the judge and she'd been doing this for a really long time, but the judge said this is unconscionable and made him get out of the house effective retroactively to the beginning of the month. And she was like, I don't know what the point of that was other than to emphasize you need to hurry and get out. So eventually we did get put back in, and there was some financial support means put in place. But for a span of quite a few months, I had no financial resources at my disposal.
That's awful. And again, even though the lawyers can help you with that, it still takes a lot of time.
It does.
And so the people who are able to avoid going through that process and having somebody cut them off financially are the ones that, again, you have to have a certain type of personality, but if that can be avoided at all costs, the smoother the sailing.
100%. And do we want to talk about how much this divorce cost me, Gail? Oh my gosh. So my ex-husband spent over $175,000 just on his attorneys, because if something wouldn't go his way, he would switch attorneys, have to bring them up to speed on the whole thing, etc., etc. My main attorney retired in the middle of my case.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to do the same thing. I spent over $80,000 on just my end, and this is someone who only made $17,000 the first year I moved to the new town.
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, 175 and 80. That's more than most people's houses are worth.
Yes.
And that was paid on lawyer fees, and yet you're still fighting about it today.
Yes, correct. It does not make anything better.
Oh, okay. So you were starting it wasn't a new career. You had done it real estate before,
Correct.
but you were starting a new business in a new town, building your contacts still. So you made $17,000. How did you pay $80,000?
Well, I used a lot of credit cards. Fortunately, I had an amazing credit score before my divorce. I had a few credit cards with $50,000 limits.
Wow.
Then after my divorce and everything was said and done, I ended up having to file for bankruptcy because there was no way I could pay the interest rate on those credit cards. And I was ashamed to admit it, but it's what I had to do at the time to survive. And that's all I could think about was survival at that point.
Well, after being basically on the lam for a couple years,
Yeah.
I can see that. So can't you make an arrangement with lawyers that I'll pay you after this is done and hopefully he'll pay the bill instead of me?
Yeah, but
They don't do that.
Here's the thing. Attorneys will say, we're going to ask for their attorney's fees too. We're going to ask for them to pay my attorney's fees. And I've spoken to a lot of attorneys over the course of this whole thing, and the honest ones will tell you, you rarely, even no matter how heinous it is, even if they get assigned to batterers intervention courses and get thrown out of their house, they never award attorney's fees. You just don't see it. It's not a normal occurrence.
And the lawyers won't do the work without getting paid.
Correct.
So even if the attorney's fees were awarded at the end of the divorce, you've already had to lay out the money to begin with. So you
Correct.
already would have used your credit cards.
100%.
Wow, that's stressful. I had a client one time who had gone through divorce. The divorce was final, and her financial advisor called me to help her. Her husband was awarded $90,000 of her lawyer fees.
Wow.
But instead of paying it, he was very sneaky and he put a lien on the house for it. Well, no, he did not. He didn't pay the lawyers, so the lawyers put the lien on the house. That was the house that she was awarded during the divorce.
Wow.
So he was going to go to the courthouse and sign a quit claim deed, which would turn the property over 100% into her possession.
Wow.
But it was worth almost $100,000 less because he didn't pay that bill, and there was a lien on the house.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow, that is sneaky. And it's amazing what people do and come up with. But I have to say, you were such a huge help to me, even though I couldn't use your services to mediate my divorce. The things that you were able to help me with were, invaluable. I didn't know how to fill out a financial affidavit. I was like, how much did I spend on groceries this week? And I would actually go add it up, and you would say, okay, this is customary, this is not customary, and I think you ended up saving me quite a bit of money. And then, who's ever heard of a quadro? I hadn't. I had no idea what a quadro was. So it was interesting to have to, it was definitely an education process getting a divorce, but it was so nice to have you there to be able to walk me through how to roll over a quadro, how to fill out a financial affidavit, how to tell me on the front end, okay, he makes XYZ, you make XYZ, these are your expenses, these are your assets, this is what you're probably going to look at for support, and this is what, because that helped me plan during this 18-month process of not knowing what was going to be happening in my world financially. I had no idea what child support would look like. I had no idea what alimony would look like. So it was invaluable to have that resource that you provided, even though you couldn't actually take care of the big bully in the room for me.
Right. No, I wouldn't have wanted a part of that anyway. But that is what I do love about my job, is being able to help financially. As a certified divorce financial analyst, I've been through training and taken tests to get little letters after my name specifically to help people going through divorce, because there are intricacies about it, that different tax implications, how the money can be dispersed, that some people just don't know, and that includes some lawyers. Some lawyers know everything because they've done it so long that they know it inside and out. And some are just kind of doing the best they can with the financial stuff. They definitely know the law and can get you through the law, but really most people's biggest fear going into divorce is their concerns are their children and money.
Yes.
And so it's really important to me when people can understand their situation. And you mentioned quadro. Maybe some of our listeners don't know what a quadro is. It's a qualified domestic relations order. And what that means is if you're dividing 401k in a divorce, that you need actually this form in order to do it. It's a court order. The judge has to sign off on it before the financial company will split the funds into your own account. So you do need somebody to help you through that. Some lawyers do help you through it, and some just say, okay, here you go, you're done, go get a quadro, bye-bye. So those are things that having a financial expert can help you with too, is now you've got this divorce decree saying that you're entitled to a certain amount of the assets, but you don't know how to actually get them.
Yes.
So having that additional help. For me, what stood out the most about your divorce, I tell this story a lot actually. Your ex-husband worked for the same company for, 30 years?
32 years.
32 years for a major corporation. And when he brought his financials to the table, he brought his statement for his 401k, his retirement plan, and it was a homemade spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes, it was.
It was a homemade spreadsheet, as if this major corporation didn't have actual statements. So what he was trying to prove in a divorce situation, so you were married for 7 years?
Mm-hmm. 7 before I filed, 9 in total.
Okay. So when he worked for this company before he met you, then you got married. So everything that he earned before that and was put into his retirement plan is considered separate property. And he doesn't have to, that's not marital property, he does not have to share any of that in a divorce. And so another way that people need financial experts to figure out how much of that was before the marriage and at what point was the money. So for an example, let's just pretend he had been at this company 20 years before you got married. Mm-hmm. He had $100,000 in that account. Mm-hmm. Then you got married. Mm-hmm. 7 years later, you filed for divorce, and now that account was $150,000. So his separate property that he does not have to share in a divorce was that $100,000. That doesn't go into any kind of factoring here. So you have $50,000 left to share between you and him.
Correct.
And basically, it's equitable division is how things work. So you would get 25, he would get 25. In this case, he turned in a spreadsheet. He did use that date, the date of marriage. That was the correct part. But what he did was he put only his contributions. So $300 for pay period, $300 here, $300 there, and it added up to I don't know, let's say $130,000 over the course of the 7 years. He did not factor in any of the growth in the market. He did not factor in any of the company's contributions. And that was one way that I was able to help, was looking at that, saying this is ridiculous, and doing the calculations. We finally got our hands on a statement.
Yes.
And I don't remember the exact numbers.
So I will tell you what he was pressuring me to sign. So he would move out of the house, even though he had a lease signed in a condo, but still continued to live in our family home to torment me. So I would sign said settlement statement. What I ended up getting was 3 times what he wanted to offer me initially.
Wow.
And we're talking serious money. So it was 3 times what he was trying to pressure me to sign.
Right. And then I remember the constant manipulation about him complaining about not being able to afford child support while he lived in a golf club community.
And paid a lease on a whole nother place that I had no idea about until I found out.
Right.
And while he was hiring private investigators to follow me around and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow. At one point, he was concerned about his job, right? What was that about?
Oh yes, he was his corporation, as do a lot of major corporations, do a reorg every so often, a reorganization to, keep the investors happy, to keep the bottom line looking where it needs to look. So he tried to very much scare me into thinking that he was going to lose his job. So I better take this money now because it might not be there if he lost his job. And it was a whole big rigmarole.
Did he ever lose his job?
He did not ever lose his job, oddly enough.
Okay. But yeah, he was definitely playing out like he was living under a bridge also, wasn't he?
Yes, very much so. He was so broke, he couldn't afford anything.
Wow. Yeah, I think what concerned me the most about how he tried to play you on that 401k with the homemade spreadsheet, what was most concerning to me was not that he did it, because that is what his character is. It was that it got past his lawyer. His lawyer knows better. His lawyer knows what needs to be provided. His lawyer provided it to your lawyer. Your lawyer knew better. Your lawyer knows what should have been provided. And then it was in your hands to say, oh gosh, should I take this offer or should I not take this offer? And at that time you had basically been starved out.
Yes,
he had cut you off financially, so some money was better than none. But neither of those lawyers should have taken that.
No, it wasn't. You were the one that stood up and said, this is not accurate. This is not accurate. And thankfully, it's because you knew my situation intimately, because we are such good friends. But you knew what kind of money was in those funds, and looking at it, I mean, I just remember the look on your face. It was like incredulous. You were like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't hide my facial expressions well.
No, you were like, I don't understand. You're like, they're telling you that this is what's really in there. And so most attorneys are not comfortable or familiar, no matter what kind of veterans they are in their field, with the financial aspect of things, especially when you meet someone as savvy as my ex-husband, who is very good at manipulating numbers. It's kind of what he does for a living. So to have all these professionals come against me in a way, it was really nice to have you there to say, oh, just kidding, you're going to get 3 times more than he's offering.
Right. Well, we can say that he will not even look at me when he passes me.
No.
But that's okay. That's okay. That doesn't hurt my feelings at all. So, is there anything else about your divorce that stands out that you want to share, or maybe like a word of warning, or what you're going through now currently? Yeah.
So when I met and married my ex-husband, we made the same amount of money. Through a series of events, having child, we decided that it was best if I gave up my career to stay home with said child. most people, that is a dream come true, and I certainly did enjoy my time with my infant. However, after that, I want everyone to just be aware that there becomes an abusive, controlling relationship. There becomes a series of tightening down, tightening down, tightening down. So all the financial freedoms that you used to have, you no longer do. Your account is not in your name. He urges you to get rid of credit cards that are only in your name. He doesn't want you to go back to work after a child is old enough to go to school, because then what if you have enough funds to actually leave him and be on your own again? These were all fears I think he had, and they were, the more that those fears scared him, the more they became reality. So always try and keep some financial independence for yourself, because I would hate to have someone in my position. I was luckily, I made it through it, but I had zero funds. I had zero income, essentially. I mean, I went from making well in the hundreds of thousands of dollars as a family income to $17,000. So that's basically not even enough to buy. It's not enough to pay rent. It's not enough to buy groceries. That's not enough to pay car insurance or a car payment or anything else. So just watch yourself financially and keep an eye on, what if I need out? What if, and I know that's not in the spirit of marriage, but what if you do need out? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. It can be very scary. Even without any kind of domestic abuse in the situation, it can be scary. So thank you so much for coming today to share your experience.
Absolutely.
It's really important for people to think about divorce, all those aspects, especially your advice about having your own little pot of money, or just knowing what you can have for an exit plan. I've said before, my business may be helping people get divorced, but I'm pro-marriage. I definitely, if I can find an opportunity for couples to stay together, that's preferred. But sometimes you've done everything you can do, and this is what the answer becomes. And then try to protect yourself as you're going through it. The biggest takeaway for me was taking care of yourself.
Yes.
You shared with us.
Yes.
It's a completely emotional time, and being able to take care of yourself is so important. And I'm just so thankful for you coming on to talk today with me about this. I know it's sometimes hard topic to talk about. It's
Absolutely.
very emotionally raw. No matter how much you get through it, you have to open up wounds to talk about it.
You know what, though? If you shine light on it, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jenny Jones, and thank you for listening today to the Less Sucky Divorce Radio Show. What I'd like to do is, if anybody has any questions, I can open up the next show with questions from the listeners. You can find me at my Facebook page, which is Blue Skies Mediation. Send me any messages there if you have any questions or any that I can address either privately or on the show next week. You can also reach me at Gail, Gail, at lesssuckydivorce.com. That's LESSSUCKY divorce.com. And I can answer any questions you have on the show next week. So thanks for listening. Hang in there. Have a great week. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it was fine. Because I am passionate about that. Like, that's one thing.
O'Reilly. Cleaning your fuel system can make your car run better and improve gas mileage. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts and pick up a bottle of Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner and add it to your tank during your next fill-up. On sale now, buy one, get one free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Stop by and talk to our professional parts people today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly.
Cleaning your fuel system can make your car run better and improve gas mileage. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts and pick up a bottle of Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner and add it to your tank during your next fill-up. On sale now, buy one, get one free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Stop by and talk to our professional parts people today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly.